Hi there. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class for American accent. Today we'll be talking about how to improve your American accent for real-life speaking tasks. So we've been talking on the YouTube community channel about speaking situations which you find difficult. We'll be talking about situations like job interviews, meeting new people, making telephone calls, and other tasks that you have to do on a regular basis and where you want to be clear and communicate well and be well understood. Many times in our classes, we talk about specific details for pronunciation, for American accent, for intonation, and we can talk about those as well today. If you have questions about that, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat at any time. We'll be talking a little bit more in general about speech and some techniques for these specific speaking tasks in today's class as well. So welcome everyone, it's nice to see you all here. Let's begin by talking about something that many of you mentioned is challenging for you, which is when you have to meet someone new. So when you're meeting someone for the first time and you're speaking with them, how to know what to say, how to make yourself well understood. Many times these have, our accent has an effect on these speaking situations. And sometimes it's also cultural knowledge, cultural comfort, and familiarity. So for those of you who are living here in the US and Canada, you probably have had lots of opportunities to meet new people and to interact with Americans. For those of you elsewhere in the world, there certainly are other aspects of cultural communication that you're going to be looking at. I was just recently traveling abroad and noticing how frequently English is the common language used between non-native speakers. So many of the people that I met spoke English with one another, even though for none of the people, English was their native language. And they use that as a medium for communication. So I know that you're dealing with English worldwide. So when I'm meeting someone new, if I'm speaking with someone from the US, oftentimes the first thing that is expected in the interaction, in the conversation, is to do something called small talk. You've probably had to do this yourself. You probably have some version of small talk in your culture and in your language. But one of the general tendencies that I notice is that for Americans, small talk is standard, it's the default, and for other cultures, sometimes more direct communication, moving right into the topic at hand, is more expected. So what can we learn about small talk? I have a number of resources and videos for you about small talk, both on my YouTube channel here, as well as in my Facebook learning groups and on my website, speechmodification.com. So I'll give you some of those resources. Hi, Simon, nice to see you, that you can connect with. I would say that I'm going to give you the link for small talk on my website, speechmodification.com, because there you'll find a video and some information about what to talk about, who you do small talk with, what topics are acceptable and unacceptable, and ways to practice. So many of the things we're going to be talking about today really involve practicing and preparing and thinking ahead for that speaking task. You know, there's always going to be situations where you're meeting someone new, you're having to engage in this small talk, and if you've planned ahead, you've done some practice speaking aloud, thinking about what to say and trying to say those things, you probably will feel more confident going into that speaking task. So what do I recommend for small talk? First of all, it's worth doing, even though it seems maybe to be not that important, because small talk is generally talking about things that don't matter. So you're talking about the weather or traffic, you're saying hi and how are you, and it's not a very meaningful exchange. But the reason to do this is that if you want to have a more meaningful exchange, a more real conversation with an American, if you start with the small talk, it shows your interest, it shows you as being open to having a conversation, as being friendly, and then pretty quickly you can get into something more meaningful and make a real connection if both people are interested in doing that. So I always tell people that it's worth doing, even though it may feel a little bit uncomfortable or it's not your favorite thing to do, because then you show that you understand that that's a part of connecting, and then you can work on making a real connection, having a more meaningful conversation. So we have a question, which is, what is the difference between rhythm, stress, and intonation? Great question. So intonation is more the overall, the overarching term for all of the things related to stress, rhythm, pitch, all of the elements of speech that are not pronunciation and are not what words you choose, but more the overarching patterns in your speech. Rhythm is more about, that's a term that we use in speech as well as in music to talk about the speed, which things are longer and shorter. And stress is, we use rhythm as one of the ways to stress things. We also use pitch and other elements to use stress. So stress is more about conveying meaning. What I'm saying that's an important, a stressed word versus what I'm saying that's less important and unstressed. And stress is really helpful to understand. Using American intonation is mostly about stress. So you can find a lot of videos on that on my intonation playlist, and that's something that we talk about regularly in this class as well. So thank you for your question. I hope that helped clear that up for you. Okay, so a little bit more about small talk. When I'm using small talk, what I want to start with is a greeting. So kind of thinking ahead, planning for that situation that I'm going to say hi or hello. And Americans often will also say, how are you, as a greeting. So I find that my students sometimes tell me that they find this a little confusing, or they want to know, should I actually answer that question, or is someone saying that to me just to mean hi? So it depends on the situation. We do say, how are you, and wait for an answer and want the other person to answer. But typically, we don't give a very detailed answer to that. Typically, we just say, I'm good, I'm fine, how are you? We ask back. If someone just says, how are you, in passing, and they're kind of continuing to go forward and it doesn't look like they're gonna stop to talk, sometimes you can just say hi in response, because they're just saying, how are you, to mean hi. Typically, though, I like to respond with fine and how are you to ask back. I think that's polite. Americans are not always entirely polite, so sometimes they don't respond to that. They'll just say hi to how are you. So starting with a greeting and asking how the other person is to start a small talk conversation, and then talking about the surroundings or something that happened just before the interaction. So you might want to mention the weather. Oh, it's really sunny today, or make a comment related to the traffic. Oh, it's pretty easy to get here. There wasn't a lot of traffic. Often I suggest having a couple of questions in mind, something that you can ask the other person, show an interest, get them talking. The nice thing about that is that it does show interest, it is friendly, and it also gets you a little bit more time to think and listen and not have to be the one speaking. So if you have planned ahead and you have a couple of questions in mind, for example, if you're meeting someone for the first time, you can ask if they've been to the place that you're meeting before. Say you're meeting for coffee. Oh, have you been here before? Oh, what's good to order here? Do you like the coffee here, etc. Asking them about something related to traffic or weather. So did you have any trouble finding this place? Do you live near here? Those kinds of questions are also good. I also like having in mind that you might want to try to give a compliment to the other person. So you could take a look at if it's someone that you're just meeting for the first time, you may mention something about their clothing or something that they have with them. Oh, I like your bag. I like those shoes. That's a really nice haircut. You have to be a little bit careful with compliments regarding the other person's appearance, simply because that may cross the line of what's appropriate or inappropriate in terms of a first interaction. Safer is to compliment the surroundings. Oh, isn't this oh, I really like the art in here, or this is a great location, or wow, this is really good coffee that they have here. Something that is indirectly a compliment to the person if they chose that location, or is kind of just opening up a light topic of conversation regarding your surroundings. Um, so those are some of the starting points for small talk. And then another thing that you're going to be doing when you're first meeting someone is you may have to introduce yourself. Maybe you don't have to do this in when you're meeting someone new, or maybe you do. But again, having kind of a plan for what it's appropriate to say and to share when you're introducing yourself can be really useful. So I'm going to give you some information about that. Here's a YouTube video that I created talking about introducing yourself. And oftentimes when I'm introducing myself, if I'm a non-native speaker, the first obstacle is making the other person be able to understand my name. So there's a lot of different tips I can give you about sharing your name. People make different choices regarding how to pronounce their name so other people can understand it better. But one of the simplest things that you can do is give someone a couple of opportunities to hear your name, to be very clear and go slowly on your name. And I often recommend first giving your first name and then your first name and last name. So for example, I would say, hi, I'm Christine. Then I would pause, Christine Dunbar. Then they can hear my first name twice. They can know which one is my first name and which one is my last name. If I say the whole thing, Christine Dunbar, they don't necessarily know where one name ends and the next name begins, or what to call me. Or you can give your whole name. You can say, hi, I'm Christine Dunbar. You can call me Christine. Or you can call me Chris, or you can call me, if you have a nickname or what you prefer to be called. That gives, again, two opportunities for them to hear your name, to know how you'd like to be addressed, and to make yourself clearly understood. So we have a question from Dr. CJ Victor. What's the difference between trouble, problem, and issue? Okay, so I would say trouble is talking about, there's trouble is more general, could be refer to a lot of different things. There's a problem is one specific problem. There's an issue similar to problem. There's an issue with, usually we say that there's an issue with something. So we can say there's a problem with the meeting time. There's an issue with the printer. There's an issue with this company. About something specific. I can just say problem in general. And trouble, there's trouble with, I'm having trouble with. So it kind of depends on the other language you use with it. I'm having trouble with explaining this to you. I'm not really. There's a problem with, or having an issue with. So they're kind of all synonyms. You can use them somewhat interchangeably, but I would say that we use issue more professionally, problem more professionally, and trouble more socially, more casually. Very good. Okay, so introducing yourself, giving your name. And another thing that's nice to do when you're introducing yourself is to give some information, some relevant information that's fits the situation that you're in. So if you're networking for business, when you introduce yourself, you're going to give your job title, what you do, what your role is. If you're meeting people socially, you might find something that connects you to the other people there. So for example, if I'm at a party, I might indicate how I know the host. Angeline is my brother's sister, or is my sister-in-law. So that right away, you and the new person that you're meeting have something, you can find out what you have in common, how you might know each other, what other people you might know. That's a typical networking situation. Professionally, again, if you're giving your job title, some history, or why it is that you're at the event, that's another reason, another good piece of information to give when introducing yourself. And keeping it fairly short and simple. So you're not going to list your whole resume or your whole CV at a professional event. You're going to give them some piece of information so that they have a little bit of frame of reference for who you are, and making sure that your name is clear, and then moving into asking questions and connecting with the other person, starting that idea of the small talk that we talked about earlier. Those are some of the useful things to know about when you're meeting someone new. Questions regarding this topic or regarding other topics, please feel free to ask those at any time. I'm just going to check in with Facebook here and see if we have some Facebook questions. Nope. So I'm looking at the chat on YouTube. For those of you following on Facebook, it's always, this is a live class that I host every week on YouTube. So you want to check out my YouTube channel, Speech Modification Seattle. Also on the channel, you can find past live classes. And if you're watching this not live, you can ask your questions in the comments, and I will always let you know where you can find the answers on my website and on YouTube, and what resources I have for you for that. You're welcome. A couple more things related to this topic, real life speaking tasks. Many times I'm talking with people who are interviewing for new jobs. They're looking for work, and they're really hoping to make a good impression and to be well understood and to not have their accent interfere in the job interview process. And there are things that you can do to help you be prepared for job interviews and to help reduce the elements of your accent. Again, I'm going to give you a link for a class I did on this as part of my 30-day accent challenge. And you can find this on my website and also on the YouTube channel on the 30-day accent challenge playlist. So preparing for a job interview, a lot of what I suggest is actually practicing and talking aloud the information about yourself and the answers to questions that come up in almost every job interview that you're going to be asking. And if you have talked through the answers aloud, you'll be able to plan ahead for potential problems or issues that might come up during the interview. So once I've said something aloud a few times, I'm more confident when the time comes to have to answer that in the interview, and I'm less likely to be as nervous, more likely to be clear. And I also can, even though I'm not going to plan and memorize my answer, I'm going to feel like I know how to answer the questions that are coming at me, and that element of being nervous will be somewhat reduced. Let's see, I had a couple questions here. We have a question about the word rural. This is quite a challenging word. I often make fun of this word as an American, how difficult it is even for native speakers to say. So the word rural is difficult because of the R sounds and the L. And so firstly, working on your R in other words and making sure you have a good tight back American R, you're going to need that before you even bother with trying to say this word rural. So it goes right from the initial R, into vocalic R, So is basically like this, To get that combination, I would say maybe try saying first, and then adding the initial R. So I'm going to try and then I'm going to try and then I'm going to try And that's the other element that's challenging here, is this final L is a syllabic L. So it has the schwa sound and then the L, which sounds like and I don't want it to be the front L like little or light. More my tongue shape is different in final L. So if you have trouble with the L, I would suggest looking at my final L lessons and videos to help you with saying you also can look at my vowel videos for getting this sound with your tight back tongue. And then doing that combination is just a matter of slowing down enough to make sure you have two tight back R's in a row. So rural. And there is kind of an initial R in here as well. So yeah, it's very loaded. I always tell a joke about, there was a television show in which there was a fictitious movie called The Rural Juror. And juror, it has the same issues with as rural, where it has the and that one's even worse, I would say, than rural and juror. At any rate, no one can say those easily, not even native speakers. So hopefully you don't have to say the word rural too much, but if you do, just work on breaking it down from rural. That's my suggestion. Thank you for the question. And another question we have is, what's the best answer for please introduce yourself? Again, that's going to really depend on what the speaking situation is. For the most basic introduction, you're going to say, hi, my name is Christine Dunbar. Perhaps you're going to give some additional information. Hi, my name is Christine Dunbar. I'm an American accent coach, or I own speechmodification.com. Something about your job often is expected in an introduction. Or if it's in a social event, you might say, I'm Christine Dunbar. I'm so-and-so's sister, so-and-so's mother, so-and-so's wife, depending on the role you're playing in that social situation. You may give people some indication, some information of who you are, how you relate to the other people at the event. Another question. Oh my goodness. Okay. Pronunciation of talk, walk, ask, past, jobs, class, answers, cast, regular. Okay, great. I'm going to make note of your list, and I will tell you about where I already have videos for some of these words to pronounce. I'll just briefly go through them now. So talk and walk. The main two elements about those words are that you're going to have vowel ah in those words, which has lip rounding, ah, and is a central vowel. And the L is silent. So it sounds like talk and walk. So those are the main points, is getting that vowel ah and not trying to pronounce the L sound. The L does influence the vowel, but it doesn't, it makes it be this vowel ah. That's all you need to know. Ask and past, the main elements there are that it's vowel a, which is the black cat vowel. And that's a front open vowel, so you want to make sure you're open enough, and that your tongue is forward. Ask and past also, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the SK and the ST, that neither of those sounds drop off, and we do say the K and T in that case. So we say ask and past. Jobs is vowel ah. So making sure that you're open enough on that and that the S in that word says Z, jobs. Class, again, vowel a. Answers starts with vowel a, answers. The W is silent, and that final S in answers is a Z sound. Cast, again, vowel a, and watch out for the ST. And then regular, that one doesn't follow your pattern. So I'm just going to point out before I talk about regular that it seems to me that for you learning about vowel a words, which words have that, might be useful. Paying attention to final consonant clusters, when S says Z, and then a little bit of attention to ah versus a versus ah. So a lot of words spelled with letter A and the different vowels that letter A can say. You can find a lot of lessons regarding that on speechmodification.com and on my channel. And lastly, you asked about the word regular. So let's talk about that. Regular has our R sounds, of course. The vowel eh, as in red tent, regu. So in this case, we have a g and a y, gu, before my oo sound, regular, and we basically go almost directly from the L to the R in that case. So there is the vowel and what you might find most challenging here is going from the L to the R. So practicing and then lur, having to pull the tongue back from the L to the regular. Okay, so great list of words. I hope that I helped you with that. I know I kind of sped through those. You can always use my YouTube channel search box, and also on speechmodification.com. Use the search tools to look for help with specific words and patterns. So if you're on speech modification channel page, look in the playlist for the particular vowel, or use the search box and type in your word or phrase. If I have a video for that particular word, it'll come up. Or if I don't, leave a comment on this video or on any video asking me your question, and I will give you an answer, let you know where you can find resources for that. I'll just show you on speechmodification.com. What I recommend is on my homepage, if you go here to the free practice and you look at online practice free trial, again, you'll see that there's a search box here, and I can type in a word or a phrase that I'm looking for, and it'll bring up some information. So for example, we're probably not going to have enough time to talk about talking over the phone today, but say that's something I have an issue with. I'm going to search on phone. And then you'll see which lessons and videos I have for that search, and it'll come up and you can go and see which ones apply to you. So being clear over the phone, here's part of the 30-day accent challenge. This is another class we did about challenging speaking tasks. So you can see how to spell your name and address over the phone, for example, and things to be aware of when giving out numbers over the phone, and additional links related to that. So I hope that you'll use those tools. If you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, I suggest doing that as well. And you can use the notifications bell to choose how you'd like to be notified. That way, YouTube knows this is a class that you would like to have continue. They'll help more people find it and see it. And it'll also, my videos will show up on your homepage. So when I have something new, you can check it out. Or you can turn on notifications to find out every time that I'm live, have YouTube let you know that I've uploaded a new video or I'm hosting a live class. We will have the same live class again next week on Friday at 12 o'clock noon Pacific time. And we'll be doing more question and answers, so you can bring your pronunciation and American accent questions. I see there are a few more questions, so I'll get to those before we finish. Curtis just thanking me and saying it sounds so easy. I know it's not easy. I know it's challenging when you have words that you're struggling to pronounce, but I do feel that usually one word at a time, it's not so hard. It's mostly challenging to remember the new pronunciation and to begin to use it in these real life speaking tasks. And for that, I just highly recommend setting a small goal. So telling yourself, for example, if you have all of those words that you're working on, focus on the ones with the vowel a and practice saying ask and pass and answer and class until you really feel solid that you can say that a vowel when you're saying those words by themselves. And then say, okay, I know I have to say the word class a lot. I'm talking about the class I'm in. I'm going to class. I'm just going to focus really on paying attention to when I hear that word and when I say that word. And fairly quickly, you'll be able to feel confident that you're pronouncing it correctly in lots of speaking tasks. And then say, okay, well, I can do class. Now I'm going to add ask and answer because I'm really solid on this a vowel, and I'm going to bring those in as well. So it may seem like, oh, that's going to take forever. But you'll find that if you really give your time and attention to a little bit of practice every day, a little bit of awareness in different speaking tasks, very quickly you'll master those things. You'll be ready to move to the next task, and you'll feel confident that, yes, I can change my speech, I can improve, I can figure out what I'm doing incorrectly and correct it. That's a big part of what I try to provide in these classes, as well as in my online courses and in my one-to-one training. So do check those out. Go to speechmodification.com. There's a free 2-week trial of all of my online courses, and they're very inexpensive, so you can go through and begin to just take those steps to make the changes in your speech, to feel confident, to go into these real-life speaking tasks, knowing that you're improving and that you're well understood. And that's my main goal for you, is to feel confident and to be well understood when speaking English. So thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of class today. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. We may talk about this same topic, or we might move on and move to more specific pronunciation topics. I'll do some polls this week on the YouTube community page, so you can check out and respond. Tell me what you'd like to see in our upcoming class. And I'll just show you where that is as well. So when you're on YouTube, on my channel page, you can go right here to community, and you'll see if you're on your desktop that I post polls, I ask questions, I give answers and resources. So that's just another place to kind of check in during the week between classes. So if you do that this week, you can weigh in on what you'd like to see for next week's topic. So thank you so much for being part of class today, everyone. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.